Today we're going to talk a little bit about sources, the sources that historians use to conduct research, to analyze the data, to interpret, and then present their work. Let's start with the concept of primary sources. Primary sources are not primary because they're most important. They're not primary because they're the principal source for your research, and they're not primary because they're the first source that you found. Primary means something totally different in this case. Primary sources are sources, materials, that were created contemporary to the time period that you're studying. So for example, they could be newspaper articles, government reports like the census, they could be photographs or maps, they could be interviews, autobiographies, they could be oral histories. Oral histories are interviews that gather people's memories about historical events, and those are also primary sources. A secondary source is when you have done your research. You've taken the primary sources, the government census, the photographs, the newspaper articles. You've read them, you've analyzed them, you've interpreted what they mean, and then you're ready to present your work, whether it's in a book, and historians usually write books or articles. It could be a museum exhibit, that's one of the things that I do, or it could be a documentary. These are secondary sources. Secondary sources have been through the historical process of interpretation and analysis. Now we get to tertiary sources. Tertiary sources gather the material from secondary sources, synthesize it, and create something new. As a university student, I am sure that you have read textbooks. Perhaps you've read a textbook on the history of the world or a history of the United States until 1865. When you're writing a textbook, you don't go and start doing primary research on the American Revolution and then all the way to the Civil War. No, you gather what other people have written and you synthesize it. And this is a tertiary source. A tertiary source is taking what other people have already analyzed, interpreted, and written, and you synthesize it into something new. Here's how I think of it. Think of wheat. Wheat that you've just harvested from a field. This is a raw material. It is a primary source. You take that wheat, you grind it, you refine it, you bake it into a loaf of bread, you make something new, you analyze, interpret, and write. This is a secondary source. Then you get that secondary source, that loaf of bread, and you gather all the yummy stuff that other people have made, chicken salad, for example, roasted vegetables, and you make a sandwich. This is the tertiary source because you've taken what other people have made and you create yet something new. So these are the three levels of sources that historians use. Primary sources, which are the raw materials, secondary sources that are primary sources that have been analyzed, interpreted, and written about, and then tertiary sources that take what other people say and create typically a textbook.